Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited. My name's Hannah Sieber. I am the executive director of Try Together. As I think most of you know, we are a nonprofit based in Massachusetts that provides free virtual tutoring for kids in foster care, adopted out of foster care, or in kinship care, which is like, a grandparent taking a child in or something like that. All of this comes down to our mission of education, equity, and community. So we kind of came together and realized there's more we can do towards that mission than just this tutoring on a bigger scale. So we created Learn Together, which is what we're at, which is a speaker series entirely free to the community where we come together to talk about things related to education and equity. Sometimes with more close relation to foster care and sometimes not, but let's all come together and like share in this mission. Today's speaker is Whitney Finlinson, who is a small business owner and CASA volunteer working in the state of Utah, so a different state, similar mission. I actually met Whitney when I searched literally the words foster care on LinkedIn because I don't know how to network, so I just search things. And because why not? You read some fascinating things when you just search. And Whitney had posted about her work with CASA, which I'll let her go into. And because Whitney is also a small business owner, she had a Calendly meeting link in her profile. So I sort of snuck myself onto her calendar and just put in the thing like, this has nothing to do with your business. And she so graciously still met with me and was just so warm and clearly so passionate about her volunteer work, and was happy to speak to all of you today. So I'm really excited. I will let Whitney tell you about CASA and their work, but just prepare to be inspired. Her experience with CASA is very cool. The way it goes back to her grandmother is very cool. So Whitney, I'll let you take it from here and thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Hannah, for having me. I'm so excited to jump in and talk because this is such an important topic, especially right now with everything that's going on in our world and people just like looking out for each other and really trying to dig in and support each other and starting at youth is so important. So just a little bit of background on me. I come from a pretty large family in Utah, why not? Par for the course. And my grandmother was a CASA, and CASA stands for a Court Appointed Special Advocate. And the whole point of being a CASA is to work with the Guardian Ad Litem's office. The Guardian Ad Litem's office are the lawyers who represent foster children in court. And so if you look at a child in foster care, they have a pretty massive team when it comes from like DCSF, social services, the courts, the counselors, the school, and then you go into like the actual physical health side of it. And for the average guardian ad litem, they have about 200 foster kids in their desk at any given time. With that, they can't really get into what is going on with each kid and each individual child on a regular basis. So most of the times when they interact with kids, it's like when a court date is coming up for 30 minutes, like, hey, everybody's still alive here. Sounds good. Let's do this. And so the whole point of being a CASA is to go in however many times you'd like a month and spend time with this foster child, whether they're in like care of the state or if they're placed in a foster home, or in some cases, if they're placed back with their parents to make sure that everything is going well there, and then report specifically back to the guardian ad litem's office. And it gets a little bit tricky because there are a lot of people on the care teams and caseworkers want to glean some insight and DCSF and everything that comes with that. But the whole point for a CASA is to advocate solely for the child on a legal basis as to what is best for their well-being and be a consistent for them. So that's like a quick overview of a CASA. And then the reason that I got involved is my grandmother, when I was young, she broke a lot of the rules. They would not like what she did in the CASA standards of today. Um, because we grew up with like foster kids at our house and, we coming to family parties and like, that's a great big no-no now. It's supposed to be very like just one-on-one. The foster care is like the foster child is your focus and not really integrated. And so she actually, a couple of things started happening. There was a little girl. This is what stemmed her love and passion for CASA. There was a little girl, I think she was 2 years old, She entered the foster care system. She'd been in a few times before, and then she was constantly returned to her parents and then coming back worse. She was being abused, and she was coming back worse every time. And my grandma was losing her mind. She's like, "This is not okay. This is not okay." Because the state system across every state, and there are CASAs throughout, it's like the entire, there's federal programs and there's state programs, but it's across the entire US. Um, so the rule is you want to put kids back with their parents, right? Like the goal is always reunification, unless there's something seriously wrong, in which case you shift and go for adoption. And so these parents were constantly getting the benefit of the doubt, and this little girl almost died. And my grandma was like, enough, lost her mind, sued the state. She was on like Mari Povich. Like they had her on to do like a quick, like a guest to talk about her work and the work that she'd done there because she had won this argument that really changed the regulation for child abuse in the state of Utah. And then because of that, a lot of different CASAs around the US have kind of used the Utah template. Everybody's allowed to do whatever they want with their CASA organization within their state. But they've used a lot of like what Utah is doing in order to kind of help drive all of their efforts. So growing up, we'd be at family parties and there would be just like adorable babies there with helmets on their heads because they had been abused so badly that they needed to have their heads reshaped and just, just horrible, horrible things. And as a child, you're like, what is this cute baby doing? And as an adult, it kind of hits a little differently, especially, I don't know if anybody here has kids, but once you have kids, it's also like magnified by 100. Um, so very long-winded story. That's how I got involved. It was a generational thing for me. And I love supporting people who don't have a voice and they don't have consistency and they don't have access to, when you're so young, you don't have, your idea of the world is just so limited. And it's hard to tell somebody that and not be offensive. And so my entire goal as a CASA is to come in and help kids with where they're at. Um, I've got, do, do you have, are there any questions about kind of like the guardian ad litem or like anything that has to do with like what a CASA's role is?
Oh,
Okay. I'm
I
just
was
going to
just
keep,
gonna say it's wild. This year is the first year we're doing like I'm meeting with every student and either their social worker or a foster parent or something. And it is, you hear these stories that it's like you were at the party, you're like cute kid, and there's this whole story behind it that, yep.
yeah, well, it's heartbreaking and kids can't advocate for themselves. And a lot of times they're a product of their environment. And so coming and talking to Hannah about everything that is happening here and trying to make a difference and move the needle with these kids, it's been an interesting experience for me because they have these huge teams and you think, oh my gosh, this kid has more support than most kids who come from like a stable family. But the reality is there's a lot of moving pieces and the attention that they're getting from each of their individual teams is really limited. And so coming with somebody like exactly what we're doing here is the key piece, which really makes a difference for every child is consistency. And a few tricks that I was kind of thinking about this because I know that you guys do everything virtually, and sometimes it's hard to get over that barrier, and you don't know why the child is in foster care or the extent of it or what their reality or their situation is. Um, and a couple of things they teach you as a CASA when our entire goal is to get information out of kids without having like 21 questions, right? I'm like, please, enough. Um, and so a couple of things that we do is we talk about music. Like, hey, what's your favorite band? And then you see kids start to light up a little bit. Or you go in and you dig in on what it is they're reading or what it is, what actors they're excited about, what it is they're listening to. And if you start with just like little nuggets like that, or hey, play me your song, and then you can have like a virtual jam session with them, it actually goes a really, really long way in creating like a little bit of trust. And if it share like the whole point is to have it be consistent. And so, for example, CASA goes in once a week or every other week and just does like a wellness check. And it's not always easy because you don't know, again, what the kids, I mean, I do because I get the whole case file and I know what I'm walking into, which sometimes I'm like, don't show me that. I would prefer not knowing. But it also, I think kids, especially around this age when they're learning and they're developing and they have questions, they like to push boundaries. And in these situations, when they have somebody who is volunteering and who is just like doing this out of the goodness of their heart and their time and everything that comes with it, you want to give more than you are supposed to, or more than is because you're being manipulated a little bit. And that's kind of what I have all of my kids are like early teens, teens. And it's cute to at this point because I'm like, okay, keep going. We'll see how far, we'll see what you can get away with. Let's try. Um, but I think that always like recognizing what the child's kind of like what their history is and what it is they're trying to get out of conversations with you. They're trying to push boundaries or trying to kind of, because I think that that will happen as long as they have somebody's attention in a lot of cases. Um, so that's just kind of been like my experience with it. And then the other reason that this is so important in my view and my experience is this is a systemic issue, right? Like I think I put the statistic up recently. It's like 70 to 80% of kids who are in foster care end up in prison, and like not just jail but prison, and they call it the foster care system to jail pipeline. Like it's just automatic. That's your reality. And so I think that coming in and being a consistent for kids who are being moved a lot and kind of helping act as that anchor in that safe space, even if it's for a couple of months or a year or whatever it is you can contribute, makes a bigger difference than I think most people realize.
As a follow-up to what you were saying about, getting kids started talking and like the music, that's funny that you say that because I've been talking to all these students and consistently all of our students love to draw. It's like
Mhm.
wild to me. I'm like, wow, I wish I could draw. It's super unfortunate. Do you have any advice for we are in a position, or our tutors are in a position where we don't want to get information. I mean, we want any information, but we are
Right.
not like a therapist, and we want to be very clear with that boundary. Obviously,
Mhm.
we'll do something appropriate with any information we get, but we're
Mhm.
not there to be like, even like, how was your day? It's like, what am I going to get, right? What am I going to get? So do you have any advice for tutors on like good questions versus bad questions, if that makes sense?
I do, because we're trained quite a bit on this because there are a few things. And I think that for me, when you're coming into this, setting expectations out the jump. Like, I'm here to help move your needle as far as education. This is where we're starting. This is what our goal is. And I'm here to only focus on you and this aspect of your growth. And so then it's like very them focused. They know that they're here to learn. They know that they're here to be coached and that there's not like a lot of room for kind of pushing that boundary. And then part two is the kids want to talk to people that they feel safe talking to. And so a lot of times asking open-ended questions where children feel safe to talk. And if something really funky comes up, it's because they needed it to come up and they need somebody to advocate for them and they need somebody to tell somebody, right? Like sometimes it's like very rarely have I seen a child tell me something that it is like, oh, now I've got to carry that. I've got to, somebody needs to know. Very rarely has it been like attention seeking or in a kind of gotcha moment. Because I also have had a few of those that comes with the manipulation aspect of just being with teenagers. But I think for the most part, if anything comes up that is you're like, oh, this is out of my scope, it's that conversation of, "Oh, that sounds really serious. I'm so happy you told me. I am going to relay this information, and I want you to know that I'm gonna relay it to whoever it is that needs to be relayed because I'm here for you, and this isn't a normal activity." So, and then just drop it at that. So the kid knows that they can trust you. It's been established. You are going to say something to somebody, or if they're like, "Don't tell anybody, don't tell anybody, it's a secret," you go the other route, which is I would love to hear everything you say to the extent if you're unsafe, then we have to have a different conversation. And that's when we need to loop in other people to make sure that you and everybody around you is safe and being taken care of. So I think setting the expectation out the jump, which I have my CASA kid is so fun right now. He's been in like 4 different homes in 4 months, and he's got a lot of like serious stuff, and he doesn't want to be with his mom. And the court is still, this is the thing that you never know about children. The court still, their North Star is reunification. And this 14-year-old is like, I never want to go back and live with her again. I'll live in group homes and I'll age out for the next 4 years. And I'm like, well, I don't, the bummer is it's not really up to you. And so I think that having like the awareness of where it is that you can come in and support without me telling this kid he will eventually probably go home, just saying, hey, I totally understand what your goal is with this. And I understand that that was a really frustrating situation for you. And no matter what the outcome is, let's you and I keep having these conversations and let's you and I just stay consistent with what it is that we're doing so that they know that you're there for them if they need it and you're not tied to anything that is whatever the outcome of their reality areas, which is tricky because you want to help everybody, in my experience.
Yeah, and I get my guess is that for like try together tutors, but also just other people who want to help, these kids who don't have to have access to this, it's nice to know there are people like you who are covering the basis in other ways, right? Like if we can help with their math homework, we're not the only person on their team, like you said.
No, but it is like I think that like helping with math homework, you view that as something little, but especially in my experience, these kids who are in school and probably in the age where they need help with math are having a really hard time socially. Like in every instance that I have seen, there has been a lot of social hurdles, and it's because they're constantly on the defense, right? And that's a hard way to come into life, into a school, if it's a new school or a school they've been in for a while, to make friends and to trust people. Because one, you're looking for a shock factor to get attention. Sometimes that's just how adolescent minds work, right? Any attention is attention. And then the other part of it is they're looking so desperately for acceptance because they're in the foster care system. If you're in the foster care system, something consistently has gone very, very wrong. And so you're looking for acceptance. And so being in the position to be able to just have a consistent hour or 30 minutes with a kid every other week makes so much of a difference. And I think that people in CASA, this is one of the largest complaints that our chapter talked about, is people who are CASAs, it gets really, really heavy and then they kind of just go dark. And because it's a lot to carry. And then the kid, that's more damage in the long run than if the kid had not had a CASA or not had somebody. And so there are ways to, hey, you're going to age out of this tutoring. You killed it. We're going this way. We're going to get you set up with the next step. I think kids are just looking for communication and honesty because there's so many unknowns. Like my kid right now who's been in the foster care system for 6 months, and he doesn't know where he's going to be in a month. And people will tell him that this is going to happen in a few days, and then it doesn't because legal systems are just hurdle after hurdle after hurdle. So even the road to good intentions of open communication, it's not awesome. So being the person who can be consistent, that is not tied to some sort of a state legal, like federal legal program, is where the difference is made.
Absolutely right. Being that source of consistency, which is for all the tutors on the call. That's why I'm like, are you sure you can do the whole school year? Because how, like an added thing, like, oh, I have a math tutor I like. Oh, now I'm getting a new math tutor. I don't know if I'm gonna like them, right? Like, not
Well, and
gonna.
it happens, like life happens, people have to move on, schedules change, and just as long as there's like a close-ended conversation with that child, it's not adding to an abandonment, it's not adding to a rejection, all of these things. Like I think that the communication aspect is absolutely huge. And the important thing about you guys, and this is something that my older CASA kids, they think that I'm being paid to come and see them and to, drive 30 minutes out for a 2-hour burger and then, the dollar store. And I think that like having these kids understand that like you're doing this not as a paid person, not as somebody who feels sorry for them, but just as somebody who wants to see them grow. That is what the major difference is, because a lot of people who are interacting with them that are not their parents, where their parents are generally not a safe place, are being paid to do so. And
It's a
so
really
that
good point.
for what you're doing, that's the difference. I mean, the lawyers are being paid, the DCSF is being paid, the foster care parents are being paid. So it's a different approach when people are coming in and contributing to them just because they can.
It's a really good point. I don't want to clog all the questions. Does anyone else have any questions? And if you don't feel comfortable yelling it out, feel free to put it in the chat and I will also read those. Um, let's take a look and feel free to just yell them out because I'm not going to be able to find hands. I'm not good at that.
Same.
I have a question. Hi, Whitney. I was just wondering what advice you have to someone who would be interested in becoming a CASA.
Do it. CASA has like a really intensive, it's not intensive, but for volunteering, when you kind of like want to just jump in and make a difference, their training is generally about 2 months, and that comes with like I think it's about a 2-hour weekly in-person session, and then they also have a few online sessions with professionals. And then you are, so it's actually like a pretty, it's not a serious thing, but it is a pretty serious thing because you have to be sworn in by a judge. You're court appointed, and that gives you a different level of accountability and a different level of presence within the whole system because you are court appointed, as a lawyer would be, right? So you're appointed to a child. So I would say the rough goal is to do it for at least a year. So if you're going into the mindset of being a CASA, you want to be consistent for the kid and do it for a year. And then for each jurisdiction, like there's one for where I am in Utah, there's one for Salt Lake, there's one for Utah County, right? Every county has a different kind of program and a different setup, but there is a lead who generally resides at the courthouse, and they can be your sounding board. So if you ever have any questions or you're like, hey, this was a little funky, who do I talk to? Because you're not supposed to talk to case managers or DCSF, because that also plays into their end goal is reunification. And so talking strictly to attorneys about what recommendations are, what the kind of conditions the kids are living in, and what the next step for that child is something that's taken really seriously, but it's also so needed. So thumbs up, highly recommend it. If I think it's CASA.gov or CASA.org, I can double check, but there's one for every county in the US. So, but be ready to go in and put some time into it.
How long have you been with CASA?
I started back in 2017.
So you made it past the year.
Yeah, I made it past a year. I had a kid, I moved, and then I came back and then like reintegrated, and I had to redo the program again. I was like, you guys are really not making this barrier to entry awesome because I've done the program twice now. But at the end of the day, it was good because it's, you glean things when you don't understand, like everybody here talking about kids liking to do art. One of the entire training sessions is with a therapist who, when kids are a little bit smaller and they're not quite as evolved as those teenage years, how much they can pull out of art that people are doing. And now I look at art differently. Every time my 4-year-old like paints a picture, I'm like, everybody's smiling. we're moving in the right direction. So it's cool because you learn things about people and about the system and kind of different ways to read people inside and outside of foster care.
Awesome. Are there any other questions? Awesome.
A
Well, then,
comment, please.
sorry, go for it, Paul.
Thank you. I'm new to all this, so I really don't know how to ask the right questions. But I appreciate you, Hannah, and excuse me, our speaker Whitney for sharing this because this is new to me. I admit, and I everything that is being said tonight is the kind of is addressing the things that I would have been wondering about. Because you may recall when we last spoke, it was I said I didn't want to go around on pins and needles. Things like asking the open-ended questions, learning that people are into drawing because I'm into music, but and art. So yeah, I'm there, and it's like, okay. Those are things I could do, and I know how to do those in one setting, but here I don't know. So that's I again I appreciate the reminders, and not in this case just reminders, but just the ability to help me get the firm establishing footing maybe, and
Mhm.
then of course if I have questions then and maybe something more intelligent next time around, then I'll be sure to offer. So thank you both ladies, I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Paul. And
Mhm,
I also, on the music aspect, like
mhm,
if you let a child, hey, what's your jam right now, and then have them play it in the background while on a Zoom, I've also done that.
mhm.
It changes their entire like demeanor. You can see it
Yeah,
instantly. It's a
mhm,
shift. It's like a little bit more relaxed. It's not as like,
mhm.
just on every front because it's kind of uncomfortable going into situations with adolescent kids where you're like, I'm here for you, I promise. I know you don't know me that well, but we're gonna figure it out. Um,
Really, thank you.
yeah, so those little hurdles actually really make a difference.
Yes.
Oh,
Very
I
good.
love
Thank you so
that.
much.
Yeah.
That's so great. Oh, we have one in chat. Sorry, let me find it. How would you recommend utilizing the trust building strategies in an academic specific setting?
Well, that's really a great question because as I spoke to earlier, like even if you're in an academic setting, for a lot of these kids, there is a major social component, right? And the social component is really distracting. And I think that's probably um, it's a bigger deal, especially for people who are in those teenage years. And then if you look at layer two of this, like my kid right now, has been out of the education system for at least 6 months. So he's going to just like get a pass for this because he hasn't consistently been in one place long enough to actually attend a school. And then when he was put in a school, he's actually really bright. The social aspects deterred from everything that was happening on his education level and for him was being deterred because of all of the social problems that were coming into it. So I think as far as building strategies around like what's going on academically and what your goal is being communicative. Hey, I want to talk to you. I want to establish a good relationship and I want to make sure that you and I are on the same page and that we're moving forward. Here's what we're going to work on. Here's what the goal is, and here's what the long-term goal is. And if we hit all of these boxes, I will send you like a $5 Candy Crush card, go crazy, or whatever your thing is. I'm not saying you have to spend money. There are a lot of things out there that are free or $1 or less. But I think that setting out what the goal is and the long-term achievement is, kids need to understand, especially in this situation of so much uncertainty, what it is your point is with them and what it is the finish line is. And then it also gives them something to look forward to and something to work for. And it gives them the benefit of the doubt they can do it because in most cases they don't have that in a lot of spaces in the world.
It's also wild that for some of these students, like the education is so tied so closely to their confidence and confidence. I mean, it plays into everything socially. Like we have a student right now who I believe, of course, I'm blanking his name, maybe around fourth grade and learning the alphabet because was taken out of school for many years related to similar reasons as, being put in foster care. And all she wants is to know how to read. So it's like she's now looking forward to tutoring because this is going to give her, she's going to make friends because of it. She's like, she sees this whole future in front of her that reading is the start of.
Well, and hitting benchmarks, like everybody loves like a good endorphin tap, right? They're like, I did it and moving on. And like that's a great, I mean, just the ABCs, like that's a really big thing.
Awesome. Well, Whitney, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for coming.
This was my pleasure. Thank you so much for listening and for the time. And if anybody has any questions, Hannah has my email address. So if you ever want to get into the weeds of it or like funky situations, I'm here to bounce ideas off of. And I really everything that you guys are doing is just like above and beyond amazing. And it makes such a difference. You don't think it is, you don't think it will, but in the long run, it's like such a difference. So thank you everybody for being awesome.
Well, thank you so much. I hope everyone has a great night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.